Everybody, I'm gonna
Missing the baseball game.
Okay, no
He gonna tell y'all
Remember speaking to the
Giving money to charity, that stuff, I mean, some things they're required to give us.
You were messing up.
pass one of those. I'm okay with this.
Email about this today, but I want to make sure you got it. They don't do they do it all through their corporate offices. They don't do anything for local people. They invite Lamar and
Okay.
Porter, but so anyway, it's Friday at 10:30.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Every folks think out of good money.
All right. Are you ready? I'm ready. If you are, if you don't work on that. Just to get this going.
I do.
Well, Mr. Hubbard, it's not you.
Big money folks.
I would say return.
And it's something I passed out, we'll talk about that later.
Exempt from the income
Oh.
tax.
I wonder if
Who's that?
He wants you to fill it out.
What is it?
it's too late in the afternoon for that. No numbers.
What gave us this?
It's $9.90, no problem.
Already feel I made income tax.
Yeah, me too.
This regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for July the 15th, 2014 will come to order. I'll ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. We welcome you to tonight's meeting. Alderman Ellis is absent. He has had knee surgery and is still recuperating, and we'll miss him tonight. He wishes us well. Probably glad he's getting rest a little bit too. Okay, the first item on our agenda, we're going to turn to our illustrious head of Parks and Recreation. He wasn't sure what I was going to say about him tonight for a presentation regarding the 2014 Dixie Youth Baseball AAA State Tournament.
I come bearing gifts, and I did not steal all these from one store.
Well,
Good to
Glad you
know.
get them off in one.
Sherry had already made a picture of you with that stack, and if there any stealing out of the racks, they'll be looking at you first.
Hey, you know, grab me with
I'm only going to take a couple of minutes of your time. But if you've been around this town the last couple of weeks, baseball is king around here right now.
Thank you, sir.
Reading on the news.
How are you keeping?
Thank you.
What I gave you, the Times did a very, very good job about reporting on the state tournament that's coming up. We are basically 48 hours away from 1,000 of our closest friends coming to town. We are going to kick it off Thursday night, 6 o'clock next door. With the help of Grace Baptist Church, we're going to feed everybody that walks through the door. The rule of thumb, according to Grace Baptist, is if a grandmother brings a dog from Jackson, we'll find it a bone. But what I gave you there was the tournament bracket, our logo. Second page has got the 16 teams that are coming. In case y'all were to happen to have any family in any of those towns, we do have one member sitting here on the front row that claims Savannah as a home. But then the third page is what we're going to do for opening ceremonies, and that is why I'm standing here right now. There will be a table designated to you, the board, if any of you would like to attend. You're not going to have a 5-course meal. But if you can get by on hamburger, hot dogs, and everything else that 9 and 10-year-old boys will eat, we would love to have you there, and the 900 plus, 1,000, whatever, we don't know what we're going to have, guests would certainly appreciate y'all's presence. The only thing that I would ask of you is this. If you have any indication of attending at 6 o'clock Thursday evening, I would like to know about it so we know how many to plan for. Then we will start play Friday out at the park. We'll cram everybody out at Travis Price. They are calling for 100% chance of rain Friday. If it rains, we play baseball at some point in time. We may be out there to 2 in the morning, but we'll play. So we'd love to have y'all out there. I know the people that's visiting our town would love to have you out there. The list of people that are responsible for this tournament is way too lengthy for me to name. The whole town has bought into it. The whole town bought into the 7 and 8s. But the gifts, the door prizes, the stuff for our goodie bags for each player that attends, the meals that we're going to have, I can't say enough about our town. And that's the other reason that I'm up here, is to say thank you to all of them. We could not do this by ourselves. So once again, you are our welcome guest. Mayor, as a matter of fact, I've already entered you in the limbo contest.
That was nice of you. I'm sorry I have another engagement.
Okay. Anyway, that's all I've got. I wanted y'all to at least have an idea of what's going on here over the next 7 or 8 days, so that's all I've got.
It's great to be able to showcase our city. We appreciate all the hard work that your department's done, and all of the businesses and individuals, churches, and so forth that have supported this in the past and again this year, and we appreciate you so very much. Thank you. We're scheduled now for 2 public hearings. The first one is in regard to Ordinance 14-11, which would rezone 1.5 acres of property on U.S. Highway 431 North, just up from the credit union. And that change would be from restricted industrial to CS commercial services. This is to allow for a third store that Dollar General is planning to locate here in Springfield. Is there anyone who wishes to make a statement tonight in regard to this change in zoning? Hearing none, we'll move to part 2 of our public hearing, and that is a proposal to create a no parking zone excuse me, on the west side of North Walnut Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in regard to that? Come forward. Just come to the podium and speak into the mic there and give us your name and take a couple of minutes to tell us, to make a statement about this issue.
My name is Jonathan, and I want to know what the statement was about again. About
what we're doing, the idea is to have, because of the narrowness of that street, it's to create a no parking zone on the west side, meaning that the only place that parking could be allowed in that block on the street is on the east side. That would be, the parking would be allowed on the side going down the hill. It would be on your right. No parking on your left.
I'm in favor for the parking on the right. So, and because where I live at, there's no parking zone, no driveway. And I think it's right for us to have a parkway on the right side, but not the left side.
Okay, that's what we're proposing. You're in sync with this then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else wish to make a statement? Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Item 1.4 is the approval of the minutes from the special meeting of May 20th and the special meeting of June 30th. Is there a motion that these minutes be approved?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? If you favor the approval, please say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. We move now to the legislative portion of our agenda. The first item is a second reading on ordinance 14-11, which would rezone the acre and a half on Highway 431 North, as we have just discussed, for which the first public hearing was held. This would change that from restricted industrial to CS, commercial services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll, Ms. Connie.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Mason.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
All right. Next is Resolution 14-15. This is your item 2.2 on the agenda. This would authorize the appropriation of funds in the new fiscal year for the financial aid of nonprofit, charitable, and nonprofit civic organizations in accordance with Section 6-54-111 of TCA and guidelines issued by the Comptroller of the Treasury. Is there a motion that this be approved?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now, any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sneed?
Part of the, this ordinance, there's some items that are listed here, A, B, C, D, and E, that are required by the state that the charitable organizations submit to the city prior to this board appropriating money. And I'd like to add, make a motion to add, in addition to what is required by the state, add that another item, that Form 990 that I passed out.
And what's the purpose of that form? What is the reason for your wanting that to be added?
Well, if we get a second, that's my motion. We'll get a second, we'll discuss it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by...
The purpose, Mr. Mayor, to adding that item is, if you see the list of what's required now, A is an annual audit. That's the only financial document that this board or the public has readily available to see what that organization is doing. The 990 breaks it down into compensation for the directors, the employees, and those things, but it does not include Social Security numbers. It just shows how the salaries are broke down, gives the public a better idea of percentages of what is being paid and what's being used for their purpose.
Okay. Other discussion?
I know when I'm treasurer for Five Rivers RC&D, we have a 990. Are all organizations required to follow a 990? Is that for just fundraising, or is it?
You know,
That's
I'm
501c.
not sure what the IRS requirement on that is, what the parameters are, but my thinking is that they do.
All 501c's file that.
They would file this anyway, is that what you're
All
saying?
501c's file this. It's required.
Okay.
So this is a minimum, so you can require whatever you want.
Okay.
In the case of let's say the YMCA, where this YMCA is part of a bigger group, they probably file 1990 for the whole group.
I'll bet they do.
Yes.
No, well,
So it'll be specific to this.
not necessarily. There's different chapters that can do it. It could be various chapters as well.
But let's say that this group, let's say that our Robertson County YMCA is part of a larger group, and they file 1990
Nashville ones.
with the 990 for all Middle Tennessee suffice.
I'm not sure exactly how the YMCA does it, but I know it can be broken down into smaller groups. It wouldn't be one for entire nationwide issue. It's probably
No,
broken
no,
down.
there-
We
there-
filed one for Nashville, I
There's a
believe.
YMCA in Middle Tennessee.
I can't answer that question.
Yes. I believe we filed one.
You think it's filed locally?
No.
I didn't think so.
Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
But I mean, we are giving money to that organization, and it's
No,
for
I
the
don't-
public. It's for the public to know where their money's going, how much is going to salary, how much is going to what their organization is for.
I
It's
can't
just
tell
it's
you
just-
if there's another one that's just for the Robertson County. I mean, I think we'd have to ask Kathy that. I don't know the answer to that.
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't.
All right.
Does the Chamber of Commerce file one?
They have to.
What else did you want to add?
That information is public record.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of these organizations are too small to have a formal audit, but we do get their financial statements for the year. And of course, the audit with the YMCA, that's, the same point made, that it's my understanding, they file one for the entire organization. We collect the annual statements from the local Y, but that complies with a copy of an annual audit.
Okay. Everybody understand this?
No, sir, I'm still lost, sir. Why are we getting?
Oh, what Mr. Steed is asking, I believe. Clay, you want to state that again, or I'll?
I make a motion that in addition to what is required by the state for the charitable organizations we provide money to, in addition to what's required by the state, that we also add the charitable organizations provide us with a Form 990.
Which they file already.
So you're not asking, I thought you was asking us.
No.
No, it has nothing to do with us as individuals. It is requiring
That's why I was
that these organizations give us a copy of their 990. All right, do you understand now what we're
I
voting on?
understand, and
Understand
I'm gonna have to support him for future endeavors, okay?
We have a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
pass 6-0.
All right. Now we move,
You're going to vote on the motion, right? You're going to vote on the resolution?
well, let's go back.
That's on
We
amendment.
voted on the
All right,
motion.
that's the amendment. Now, we're
Now
back on the
motion.
resolution as a whole. I was getting ahead of myself.
Yes, sir.
Now, back to the main motion. We have a motion and a second on
Yes.
that. Any further discussion on the main motion?
Ready to vote.
Call the roll.
Head,
Yes.
Carneal,
Yeah, aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
pass 6-0.
Okay. We move now to 2.3, which is Resolution 14-16, which would declare certain property as surplus and authorize the disposal thereof.
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Carneal,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
pass 6-0.
Okay, now on the next page, begin the administrative portion of the agenda. First item, Mr. Gardner, the retail electric rates, which are adjusted monthly by TVA due to a wholesale fuel cost adjustment. In which direction are they going?
Going down 2.4%.
Good. All right, somebody want to make a motion, we approve that before they
So
change
moved.
their mind?
Second on that one.
All right, second,
Yes, Hubbard.
Yeah.
any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Mason,
Aye.
pass 6-0.
All right, we turn to the Director of the Gas Department. You have good news? All right.
They're down 2.59%.
Robert beat you just a little bit.
He was 2.4, wasn't it? Got him just by a tad.
Good job.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I just left the all-rich state of Texas and natural gas.
Is that the reason the gas rates are
It
going
went
down? Is
down.
that what you're trying to
I
tell
told
me?
my homeboys to chill, sit it down.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mason,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
Okay, 3.3 is to discuss and possibly take action on the awarding of a bid for a website development and hosting services. The category website development and hosting services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Paul, who's going to?
Well, I'll start out. As you know, we looked at, in the budget, at getting a better website, something that's more functional, something that we can work on directly here at the office than having to go through a third party. And so staff went ahead and took some bids, and luckily the bids came within the budget amount. And Ms. Jane, I'll let you carry it from there.
Well, as Paul said, we solicited proposals from many different web companies. Those proposals that were submitted were evaluated by a team within the city, and we looked at the costing that they turned in over a 4-year period. The costing primarily is made up of the actual design of the site and then the hosting of that site over that 4-year period. The low cost was also our preferred choice, and that is Civic Plus, and that is the company that we're recommending we go with. The first year pricing is approximately $24,000 for the design. The actual hosting and maintenance cost doesn't kick in until the second or the year after the first year. So that first year cost is within the amount that we had budgeted in the budget of $25,000.
All right. Any discussion?
I think this is a plus, moving into a selling our city, so everything's going internet, so let's let it roll.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right, 3.4 is to consider two different parade permits. Actually, one is a parade and one is a pep rally. These are the annual fair parade, which is scheduled for August 25th, sponsored by the Fair Association. And the second one is the Chamber's annual pep rally on the square, scheduled for August 14th. Is there a motion these be considered together?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Head.
Yes.
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right, 3.5 is to discuss and possibly act on an appointment to serve for Ward 6 on the beer board. The recommendation, have we got that? Mr. Sneed is recommending the appointment of Deanne Bagby Pigott, P-I-G-O-T-T, to serve on the beer board representing Ward 6. The term will expire at the end of June on 2018. This was the position that Jim Campbell has held. Jim lives in that ward, and he has now moved to the chairman's position in place of David Dean, who has stepped down after a long tenure in that position. Mr. Sneed, you want to make that motion?
Yes, I move to appoint Deanne Pigott to the vacant position on the beer board.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 6-0.
All right, 3.6 is to discuss and possibly take action on an appointment to the Planning Commission for Ward 4. This is Ms. Snyder's recommendation, is she is recommending the appointment of Dr. Ken Cherry to fill out the unexpired term of Mr. Andy Yant, who has resigned. The term of office expires November 30th, 2016. Ms. Snyder?
Yes, sir. I'd like to nominate Dr. Cherry.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Hubbard. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Carnell,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
pass 6-0.
Okay. 3.7 is to discuss and possibly take action on appointments to the Highland Crest College Campus Advisory Board. The terms of appointment for Dr. Tommy Crunk and Ms. Kathy Gunn to that board will expire at the end of July of this year. The new 2-year term will extend from August 1st of this year to July 31st of 2016. Kathy Gunn is willing to serve another term if that is agreeable to the board, and we haven't heard yet back one way or the other from Dr. Crunk.
Mayor, we have heard from both Dr. Crunk and Ms. Gunn, and they both have agreed to serve.
All right, they're both willing to serve. Somebody want to nominate them?
I make a motion that we renominate them. They did such a great job, so.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sneed?
Who appoints these? It says being appointed, who nominated them? Who makes those nominations?
To start with,
We did.
I remember they're being appointed. I don't remember the
Well,
action.
the
We voted.
city and the county each have 2 representatives that serve 2-year terms. And then I believe it's the chamber, the Batson family, and one more, but, the Industrial Development Board.
Yeah.
I believe
Okay.
County
Well,
Industrial
to
Development
be more
Board.
specific, since different people nominate different groups, who's nominating these?
We nominated, the
Just
city
city.
nominated them.
You had appointed them 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. They've been, we have a motion and a
Yes,
second?
yes, sir.
All right, any other questions?
Does this board meet on a regular basis?
Yes.
What types of decisions or discussions do they have?
Well, it is advisory, and they meet with the representatives of the colleges and discuss enrollment, courses offered, that sort of thing, degrees offered.
It's kind of liaison with the community is what it really is.
Okay, so it is functioning and
It's
and has
functioning.
its purpose.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Also
Sneed.
like to make a comment. I've had an interest in what this board has done in the past, and I've asked for minutes from their meetings, haven't received them. I've asked Mr. Nutting to try to retrieve this, haven't had any luck.
Mr.
But
Sneed,
I'm
you
not
have
finished. I
not,
have the floor,
you
Mr.
have not,
Nutting.
no,
I
you're,
have the
Mr.
floor.
Wait a minute, Mr. Nutting. I'll give you your chance. Go ahead, Mr. Sneed.
And I've also asked Mr. Nutting to ask if they record their minutes, so it could be reviewed by the public, since they are acting in that interest since we appoint them. I don't know that it's being recorded. I would like to stress to Mr. Nutting to try to get the minutes recorded at the meetings. I think that's something the public deserves, instead of having, because I don't
Now-
think they're announced. They're not in the paper, they just meet, so I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they are an advisory board. Keep in mind that the Board of Regents operates those 2 colleges which function at that
At
site.
taxpayer expense. And
Absolutely.
It's a meeting of our appointees. Everyone else that we appoint, the minutes are recorded, except for this board.
Okay? Well, we will look into that.
Okay.
I would like a copy to all the board members, because I was not asked for that I can remember.
All right. Okay, you've got the appointments.
May I just make a quick comment?
Yes, you may.
In defense of both of those people, in the offset of this, they did an excellent job coordinating the curriculum and other things that this community need as it relate to growing into the community college.
I concur.
As far as getting this over to the Board of Regents to accept that they did a great job of selling this. So these people have definitely looked at our educational needs, and we can find better representatives, okay?
Right, but government in general is pulling back from public records, public access, meetings are closed, school board meetings are being denied access to the media, and it needs to be open. It needs to be recorded.
And I can understand your concern, but let me just say this to you. There's no under the table
I didn't say there was,
situation.
Mr. Hubbard.
I understand. I know you want everything out front. but let's not put it out that, you know, maliciously that something might be hid from us. I'm gonna shut up on that, okay?
All right, is there any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, would you vote your preference?
Hubbard.
Aye.
Snyder. Carnell.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right. 3.8 is to discuss and possibly take action on authorizing sidewalk renovation projects funded with bond proceeds. Is there a motion that this be considered?
So moved. Second.
All right. You have a memorandum, I believe, listing these items. And the recommendation is for, is that linear feet in each case? 490 linear feet on White Street, adjacent to the new library, the renovated and expanded library, I should say. Third Avenue is Third Avenue from Memorial up to North Main, 1,210 linear feet. Then Oak Street, First to Third Avenues on the west side, 405 linear feet. No, excuse me, 1,410 linear feet on that. Then from Third to Fourth on Oak, 1,320 linear feet. Am I getting this right, Alan? Okay. Then Garner Street from 4th to 5th on the west side, 450 linear feet. On Cheatham Street from 7th to the railroad, 1,900 linear feet. On 5th Avenue East, on the south side from Brown to approximately Josephine Street, 1,120 linear feet. On the north side from Brown down the hill until to Memorial Boulevard. Cheatham Street again, 720 linear feet from the railroad to Central Avenue. And Bourne Street, 5th to 4th, both sides, major curb repair not included, and that's the list of recommendations. Is there a motion, or did we get that?
Yes.
Oh, we have it. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Nutty?
Yeah, let me explain this list. This is not a full list of every sidewalk in the city that's going to need some repair. We have $117,000 left in the 2013 bonds. And Alan has tried to put these in some sort of priority. As you know, White Street right now, we have the library construction going on. And Alan, is this both sides of the street or just the one side?
This is on the opposite side. This
Okay.
would be the east side of the street, opposite from the library.
Okay. Then you have 3rd Avenue, which is basically from Main Street to Memorial, extremely steep slope, and those sidewalks have basically disintegrated. I think they're in your ward, Mr. Head. And then Oak Street, obviously way down at the lower end of Oak Street, starting at 1st to 3rd Avenue, those sidewalks are in pretty bad condition. So as we do the updating our master plan, we've mapped the sidewalks where we've got the worst. But I told Alan we had $117,000, give you enough to think about, give you some options, and then decide which projects you wanted to do with the money that we have available.
Thank you very much. Any discussion now?
You pretty much hit the ones that's in real bad shape. With my walking, you know, I'm the walking senior citizen of Springfield, so those sidewalks are pretty
These
bad.
are all rehab work of existing sidewalks.
All right, this is repair, replacement, et cetera. Filling in a few gaps, maybe?
Maybe on the lower end of both, but most of it's just purely rehab. And we're looking at,
You've got a section on Oak between 4th and 3rd on the west side that's, that there's a gap in that. You know, where the house was recently torn down, there's a gap right through there in front of about 4 houses.
but most of this, I would just want to start rehabbing. Now, it would take millions of dollars to rehab everything, but it is $117,000 not go very far.
Okay. All right, you've heard the proposal. With no objection, we'll call the roll.
Mason.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes,
Snyder. Pass 6-0.
there's not enough money to do all this.
There isn't. So, I mean, that was the point of having you pick what projects you wanted to do. I mean, I might,
Well, how do we know, though? We don't know individually how much they are. Why don't we,
let him
the
do
thing
it.
to do is,
Yeah.
these are the ones most in need.
Yeah.
What I thought was the top to bottom, that's what I.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Because- And the dollars is off the right, and we don't know what it's gonna cost for sure until we bid it, unless we do it
Okay.
ourselves, and however we decide to do it.
so the understanding would be it's probably we're going to do all or part of the top 3 projects.
Okay. But the others will be, remain on that list for whenever we have the next.
I've got another
No.
page too, if you want to see.
Okay. Well, when we get a little more money, then we'll open up those pages. Okay, 3.9 is to discuss and possibly take action on the annual street repair and maintenance agreement pertaining to retainage requirements, et cetera, required by TCA. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Now, discussion. Alan, do you want to elaborate on that?
We left this contract like we always did with the 5% retainage, and the contractor came back to us. The new state law went in effect that's attached to your, there, and Jim can tell you more about it, but it requires you to can't hold more than 5%, which we've always had, but to any contract over $500,000, you have to set up a separate account at the bank where they draw interest in the banks in both the city's name as well as the contractor. Now for this, the reason I came to y'all because you've already approved this contract with a 5% retainage in it, and I'm requesting there be no retainage held. And this is what the state has already gone to. They're doing no retainage. However, you do have a payment and performance bond down here. So we've got control over it, but this will be the only one I ask that at this time unless something else comes up. We hope we'll have it before then.
You're going to handle the lack of retainage by having the bond, performance
Correct.
bond. Okay. And that's what you're asking for in this motion?
That's only on this big paving project. It's like $1.2 million or something like that.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? Got a motion?
Yes, sir.
Call roll.
Snyder. Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed. Head.
Yes,
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right. Last item on the page, discuss and possibly act on the no parking zone on the west side of North Walnut between 1st and 2nd Avenues, which the public hearing is held. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion now? Call the roll, please.
Head.
yes,
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder. Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right. 311, discuss and possibly take action on establishing priorities for the police department. This is in following a discussion, I believe, that we had in the call meeting on the 30th of June for the chief to come back to us with some priorities. And Chief Thompson, would you like to come to the podium, please?
Yes, sir.
And go through your list of priorities for the public, please, and us.
Okay, well, let me give you a couple of things in terms of priority, and I'm going to start with probably the least expensive and the things that we can do and probably should do to get things rolling, get things moving in the right direction. First of all, I want to make an overall comment about automation. There are a lot of things that we could do better. We could do much more efficiently. We could provide much better information to the public if we automated certain things. We've already been doing this for the last couple of years. We've got crimereports.com. We've got our pawn shops on there. We've got a lot of things like that. We've added the laptop computers to the cars. We're doing those things. We still need to do municipal court. I'll come back to you for a specific proposal. We are not proposing that for municipal court automation that we come to you for general fund money to go out and do that. We have another way that we can pay for that I think will greatly enhance our communication with the public, allow them to pay citations and things online, All that will be automated. We can track those expenses better and do all those things in-house. So I'll come back to you with a specific recommendation on that. I don't think that that's going to require anything as far as general fund money. So I'll move on to a couple of the other things. There are a couple of things that the city manager will be talking to you about tonight. One of those is the assigned vehicle program that we use in the police department. When I came here, I was a little bit surprised at how we do that because we're not really getting the best bang for our buck as far as how we do that. There are a lot of advantages to having police officers out here using those vehicles more than what we're using them. There are specific parameters and guidelines that you use when you do that. When you tell a police officer, for example, you can use that car off duty for personal use, our first reaction is, well, that's going to cost more. They're going to burn more gas. However, if you provide certain parameters, they've got to have the radio on, they've got to meet a certain dress code, they've got to respond to calls, they've got to stop and assist motorists, they've got to do certain things like that. They can't show up at places where they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be at bars, and they shouldn't be showing up in inappropriate locations. If you do those things, you can greatly enhance the visibility of the police as well as getting more police work done for less money. In Jacksonville, Florida, they answer over 80,000 calls a year are answered by off-duty police officers in their take-home cars. So that is not a lot of money, but it would greatly enhance the presence of the police in our community, while it would also make us more competitive in terms of pay and benefits. It would eliminate some cost to the officers today, and it would also provide more as far as the services in the community. We'd be able to do more. There are some other reasons. I provided those for you in writing, things like emergency management, that sort of thing, but that's not a terribly expensive thing for us to do, and it's got a great payoff, and it also would put us in line with other folks. We have other agencies have their people that live in our community that drive take-home cars. There's a benefit to a lot of different people if we expand that program. So that's one of the things that I'm suggesting. Pay differentials is something else that the city manager is going to discuss tonight, and that's recognizing that when people perform services above and beyond what other people are doing, they should be compensated for that. We're not asking for a whole lot of money for that, but if somebody is a field training officer, for example, to be a field training officer, we send them off to school for a couple of weeks. They get a certification. They train new officers. They're doing their work, they're doing the other officers' work, and they're doing evaluations every single day. They make the recommendations whether to keep that person or whether that person's not going to make it as a police officer. It's really the first step into supervision. There's a lot more work on their part when they step into FTO. At the moment, we don't pay an FTO any more than we pay the person he's training, with the exception of longevity, but we're not paying them for those services. Our narcotics people, our patrol officers, we put them out there, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and do all those other things. They get paid patrol officer pay. This is the first department I've ever seen that did that. Most departments pay at least a detective level of pay. What we're suggesting is a slight increase to at least recognizing they're going above and beyond. And the same thing with our crime suppression unit. These guys and girls are out on bicycles. If you have spent any time out on the hill down here on South Main Street on a bicycle at nighttime in the dark, I'll tell you it is far more hazardous than anything that you're probably doing today. I've gone out there a couple of times with them. I personally I like the adrenaline part of that. I like going out and doing that. But I'm going to tell you, it's dangerous. It's physically demanding. It's not the kind of thing they're lining up wanting to do this. They should be paid more for doing more. We have high expectations for them. They should be paid more. So I've made some proposals there to give them something to at least recognize that what they're doing is above and beyond what the guy is doing next door or next to them that's driving a car around all day. Very different types of jobs we're asking them to do. I think we need to recognize that. Something we want to look at in the upcoming year is I want to take a look and expand our grant writing. I may be coming back to you and say, I'm going to need some funding for this, because when I'm going to get to staffing in just a couple of minutes, if we can find a way to at least cushion those costs when it comes to staffing, grant writing is the best way to get there. I don't expect to hire somebody and pay somebody and teach them to become a grant writer. That takes a long time to do that and to make them effective. However, there are services here in this area where you can contract with organizations that do this professionally. That might be a better way for us to go, at least here initially, to see about coming up with some funding for some projects that we do want to do in-house. The next on my list is attrition, because again, I'm going in order of how much things cost. In the upcoming year, I would like to do a full and comprehensive pay study to see where we are in comparison with the people around us. We're losing police officers to other organizations around us that frankly, not that they're that much bigger or better, but they simply can offer something we can't offer. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's specialization, sometimes it's hours, it's things like that. We're losing a lot of people that are going simply because somebody offers them more money. I blame all this on Deion Sanders, going to the highest bidder. Unfortunately, we have a generation today that's willing to go to the highest bidder. When somebody comes in and says, I'm willing to pay you another $3,000, I will make you a field training officer. I will make you, better than that, I will make you a school resource officer. And you can work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's what we're competing with, and that's where we're losing people. So I would like to do that this year, a comprehensive pay study that includes benefits as well as dollars and cents, and see how we actually stack up compared to everyone else. That's something we can address in the next budget cycle as far as compensation packages go. Relative to staffing, we have already been adjusting and making adjustments as far as how we use our people, where we put them, and we are continuing to adjust those things. I've got a lieutenant that I intend to put full-time in community outreach, doing more things in that area. I've got one lieutenant that's retiring next year. I expect to bring in somebody basically to learn both of their jobs, basically, he and the previous lieutenant, to run the patrol division. That's going to reduce the number of people in authority in the patrol division, but it's going to consolidate it under one person. So I think we'll be more efficient doing that. In administration, we're looking at upgrading a position right now. We've got somebody right now that's basically a records clerk. That position is open because that person is going to be retiring. There is so much more we could be doing that we're doing inefficiently today. For example, property and evidence room, we have a senior detective who's doing that. I'm not sure what his pay is, but over the course of a year, he's probably paid $50,000 or $60,000 a year. And part of what he's doing is running a property room. That's inventory. That's something that every one of your businesses does today. Okay, we don't have to pay a detective at that pay rate to run an inventory system for a property room. We also, payroll's being done by the assistant chief. That's not the best way to do that. Municipal court management is being kept on hand, by hand, on Excel spreadsheets. And when we want information, you have to hand count and hand figure all of those things. So we're going to make some upgrades to that position in administration right now. Now, as far as adding staff, in terms of priority, the place that we are hurting the most as far as staffing goes back to patrol. What we have consistently done, long before I got here, is we have eliminated services we provide to the community because we don't have the staffing to do that, basically. We have seen the emergency response time climb. It's gone up, even though it's only 3 minutes. 3 minutes doesn't seem like very long until you hold your breath or until there's somebody coming through the window. Then 3 minutes is a really, really long time. The non-emergency time, the holding of calls, is something we want to eliminate. I think it's terrible when we have to hold a call because we don't have anybody to send to answer it. Some other things we can do, we'll have higher visibility. We need more focus on traffic. And if we add staff to our patrol division, that's one of the things that we will do. We'll be doing a lot more traffic, focusing on the areas where there are crashes, where there are injuries, where there are hit and runs, that sort of thing. How can we reduce those things? How can we solve those cases with the hit and runs? And we'll spend a lot of time on traffic also in high crime areas. Those things fit together. Ted Bundy was caught on a traffic violation by a patrol police officer. The son of Sam Killer was caught on a parking ticket violation. Okay. Traffic is relevant to everything else that we do as far as crime, drugs, and what's going on in the community. So we propose to add, as far as our patrol division, what I've suggested is a 2+2, 2 officers the first year, 2 officers the second year. That would allow us to field more people on the street. We'd be able to do those things. I also want to put officers in the downtown area and the business districts. This would allow us to do that, where not only would they be down there in cars, they would be down there on foot and be able to go in, speak with people in the businesses, find out what's going on, get a lot more up close and personal in our business districts, and add back to some things we quit doing. We stopped doing escorts. You know, if you're running a business and 11 o'clock at night, you've got a big till full of money, or you're closing up at midnight, you're closing up at 1 or whatever time, you're closing up with a lot of money. Wouldn't it be nice to call the police and have them come by and just escort you to the bank, or at least watch you go out to your car? That's a very common feature that's in most communities. We don't do that. It's a matter of staffing and manpower. So that's our highest priority is patrol. I do want to mention 2 others to you because they are important. One is investigations. Last time I spoke with you, I told you that in investigations right now, there's some things that we're not doing. We don't really deal with repeat offenders. If you look at the front page of the paper, is that today? I haven't seen it today. Have you seen the, we just had somebody who was arrested for a murder, who is, was just pled guilty. They'll be sentenced to 14 years. They'll be eligible for parole in less than 4. Now this is a bad guy. I mean a legitimate, a real bad guy that we're just recycling. When he comes back in 4 years, he'll be worse than when he went, whenever he left. We need to do something about that. Somebody investigations. I've already talked with district attorney. I've talked with the judicial candidates about forming a coalition that focuses on repeat offenders and focuses on our gang members, focuses on domestic violence, where we hear victim refuses to prosecute, victim refuses to prosecute, victim refuses to prosecute, time and time again. We can fix that. We can change that by dedicating somebody to perform these functions. So those are some of the things, and victim witness coordination and even codes, coordination with codes are things that we would expect this position to do. So the investigative position is important. I don't want to undersell that. And in terms of administration, I don't want to miss out on IT because basically we don't have any. Let me explain. Essentially, the city has an IT person, but he is so busy, there's no way he's coming over to the police department to work on our day-to-day issues, computers, our software systems. He simply are not enough hours in a day. He doesn't do that. We have somebody at the communications center. Occasionally we get him to come over and do that. He works for the communications center. He doesn't work for us. He's not supposed to come over there unless it's a direct communications type of thing. So what we have is we have records people, lieutenants, patrol officers, sergeants. Everybody's learned a little bit about cameras, a little bit about computers, a little bit about this and that. We have nobody that really has any training, yet we've got computers in every car, computers on every desk. We've got cameras all over the city. We're dealing, even our cars we have cameras. If you make a public records request for a recording in the police department, we call a sergeant if we find out when he's going to be working again, and can he come in and burn a copy of it so we can get it to you. And he has no training, no formal training on how to do this. He's just the guy that it falls to. When we have a new project like municipal court management, some of those things, we don't have anybody to run a project like that. We don't have anybody with an IT background. So when I talk about what we need in administration, one of the things we need is somebody with an IT background. My philosophy on that, if it plugs in, it belongs to them. It's their responsibility to learn how it works, figure out how to get it fixed, troubleshoot it, coordinate with the vendors, coordinate with the manufacturers, and make it work. That's something we're missing today, and those are deficiencies. So those are some of the major things that I wanted to bring back to you. We as a department, as an organization, have looked at a complete restructuring of the organization over the next 5 to 10 years. That doesn't mean we're going to have to hire hundreds of people. That's not the case. What we're trying to do is find the most efficient ways to get where we want to go. But repeatedly what we're finding is we're doing it the most inefficient ways because that's the only place that we've got somebody who can perform that function. So we're trying to find better ways to do that. These are our priorities, but I also understand it takes money to do these things. All I'm bringing to you is what I feel like we need, and then how we make this happen, we have to work together on that. So that's what I've got to say so far, and I'm open for questions.
All right, to my left. Bruce, did you have anything?
Not right now.
Okay. Clay?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've made some notes, Chief Thompson, about some things that you talked about. You mentioned these things in order of cost. The first thing that you brought up was officers taking the cars home. Is there enough cars available for all the patrol officers to drive home?
Yes.
So
there are already sufficient cars that are assigned to the officers to be able to do that. There are already sufficient cars.
So how many officers do we have and how many patrol cars?
Well, we're budgeted a total of 38 sworn police officers right now. If we break that up, each detective, each patrol officer, all of those people have a car that is assigned.
So there's 38 unmarked for detectives and so forth, and then
unmarked
the rest,
for detectives,
and then
but
for
virtually all those people have cars, yes.
You said there was benefits to this. There's also could be some negative effect if the officers are driving their kids to school and they're in their private in their civilian clothes, or the people see kids in their cars going to school and things. That could be a negative effect in the community. They're going to wonder what's going on with that. I mean, it could be a backlash. It goes both ways with that.
Yeah.
The next thing.
If I may, before I forget that, there's nothing in here so far that addresses putting kids or family in a car. This is for the police officer only at this point.
Right. And well, I mean, things could go that way. It increases the liability in case of accidents. There's more liability because they're out there on the road more. It increases these liability because they're driving more on their off time. Adds more miles to the car. There's some negative to that. The next thing you're talking about, pay for the people who ride bicycles. Would this be pay for only the time that they're on the bicycles, or was this a increased proposal in their pay year round because they don't drive in the winter time that much? So is this officers assigned to bicycles that for year round, or just the days that they're bicycling?
Let me address each of those. As far as the bicycles, if somebody's assigned to crime suppression, that means on any given day they might be riding a bicycle, they might be on foot, they might be in a patrol car, they might be in an unmarked car, they might be doing any of those. The proposal there is that they get the 5% because they're always working crime suppression, they work a different shift from everyone else, and they have those demands. Trying to decide, well, this week they had 2 days on a bicycle, but but it rained 2 days, and trying to do that would be a nightmare administratively to do that. So the proposal for them is all the time. The proposal for the field training officers, which are also in there for the pay differentials, is only while they're training somebody, because they train them for 4 weeks at a time. We would adjust that. They would only receive additional money while they're specifically training somebody.
All right, well, you pitched it to us, the people who are on bicycles deserve more money. Now it's everybody who is in crime suppression. So that broadens the amount of people who would be getting that raise. So that's a little bit different the way it was
Well,
pitched.
actually, the bicycle is the crime suppression unit. That is a major part of what they do.
Chief, how many are actually in that unit?
When we're full strength, we would have 5 people, 1 supervisor, 4 people. In the summer and all, they would be on bicycles virtually every day, unless they were assigned to some specific assignment that took them off a box.
Thank you very much.
Well, the next thing you said was you're losing a lot of people. Can you be more specific, and do you have exit surveys that I could look at to see why they're leaving?
We don't have exit surveys, but I will tell you that we've spoken to every person who leaves voluntarily. We do have a list of those people, the people that we have lost. Let me see if I've got it with me. People that we have lost, I can provide for you and for whoever else has an interest in that. We've lost, one went to the TBI, one went to Montgomery County. One of them, Uncle Sam, pays better than we do. He went back in the military because they offered to pay him more to go to school than we could pay him to be a police officer. So I've got that information on those people who left, and the reasons that they left.
All right, that's 3. How much time back are you going to get those 3 people?
I'm going back 2 years.
3.
But we're talking about probably 6 or 7, I think, are actually on that list. But those are the first 3 that come to mind.
That's less than 1% a year. You talked about cameras.
Excuse me, Mr. Sneed.
There's 38 officers and one person, 3 out of 2 years. That'd be 1.5. No, that'd be 3%. 3%. You said cameras was in the cars, and you also said cameras was all over town. What do you mean by all over town?
Well, we have different cameras. Obviously, there's some places that have cameras for security purposes.
Like businesses?
Well, we have businesses, but we also have the police department. We've got the communication centers. We've got even a lot of our parks and rec and stuff. So we've got those. We also have poll cameras, which are used by our narcotics people that show up all over town. So we deal with a lot of cameras and a lot of technology.
Well, I'm a big supporter of that. I see a lot of it in Nashville. I see them, and they're identified by the blue blinking lights. You know they're out there. It's not hidden. You know they're there. So just like patrol cars sitting at intersections, it puts it out there where you know they're out there. I support that and think we need more. You mentioned a lot of, you specified a lot of highlighted buzzwords to us to try to pitch for more money things. Ted Bundy, Son of Sam, escorting lots of money, and murderers getting back out on the street in 4 years. Those are buzzwords. I understand you're trying to pitch for these things. You talked about the murder and getting out in 4 years. That's a legislative, the legislature in Nashville has to take care of that. We could talk about and discuss that all we want here or at the county, but that's really a legislature issue. And that's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed. Mr. Hubbard.
First of all, the rebuttal. What you said about the returning criminal is a local issue. Secondly, you cannot really disclose where you got all of your cameras, and we should know that, okay? Number 2, yes, I'm glad that you did break this administratively down to us about losing officers and the incentives and the changes that we need. Secondly, almost every community in this metropolitan area, the officers take their cars home. That do a lot of deterrence and criminality. So I support everything that you put out there, okay? And we have to understand we need to just, instead of rebuttal or kicking against you, understand we need to just go along with the program and get a vision and see, because crime is real and crime has put an ugly scar on Springfield. So I'm glad that you're stepping it up, and I support you 110%.
Mr. Mason?
No comment.
You have anything?
No comment.
Okay. Ms. Snyder?
I think one of our first priorities needs to be the automation in the office so the officers can work more efficiently. We're going to have to get the technology up to par. That will help everybody in the police department.
And part of that you did tonight when you used to approve the website.
Right.
Because there's so much that can be done. Not only from the police department standpoint, I could give you a list of things we'll be able to do with the new website. As a city, the things you will be able to do: posting agendas, minutes. For that matter, you can post video. The things that you can do as a city, your calendars, rental properties, eventually be able to do online billing, pay your bills, your utilities. It's going to open a tremendous door for everybody, also for the police department. So that's certainly something you've done tonight that is going to improve life for everyone, in my opinion.
And when you call the police department and you ask about citations and when you have to come to court, I understand the technology is not there for the ladies in the office answering those questions.
Well, today, if you want to pay a citation at the police department, you either have to drive to the police department, walk in and pay it, or you have to mail a check. They don't take credit cards. You can't. They cannot look up their case online. If they forget their date or they forget something else, they can't even look it up. So yes, what we're doing today is very antiquated as far as our our court management. And when I start asking questions, what's the most common citation, who pays their tickets, who doesn't pay their tickets, when we start trying to analyze the data, the statistical data, basically all of that has to be hand searched, and it's very cumbersome, and frankly, we don't do it very often because it's so cumbersome.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot to ask him this.
You get one more question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Translators, the two dominant foreign languages we have in Springfield is Arabic and Spanish.
Yes.
Are you equipped?
Actually, we are a couple of different ways. First of all, most of our people, we have Spanish for police officers. I've actually learned a little bit of Spanish, enough to get by anyway. As a matter of fact, the last couple of times I've ridden with the officers out here, I've had to use some of my Spanish, and I think that they appreciate that I make the attempt. But most of our officers know enough Spanish to at least ask for basic things, ask for a driver's license, and to do some essential things. We also have some people that are very good in Spanish. Carlos was raised in Mexico City. He's fluent, and if we have major issues there, he's our man for that. We also have a number of others that are very good and can do those interviews.
Arabic.
We have another system that is essentially done by phone, and we can call a number and let them know, and basically put somebody on the phone, what language, what dialect, and whatever, and we have somebody that can translate, and that's all done telephonically. We can sit down there with somebody that can translate back and forth for us to do that, and that's assuming we don't have other needs. I mean, there are others that do counseling and other things here locally, but that particular service is available anywhere by phone, and we've got every language that you can possibly imagine is included in that bank.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chief Thompson, I want to thank you for this summary that you provided us tonight. This is in direct response to the meeting that we had June 30th, in which we asked you to follow up with a list of priorities, and you've done that in a very timely manner. We realize that there's cost associated with quite a bit of this, but we also knew before we asked you that as you outline a plan for the next couple or 3 years, these are the goals, these are the objectives we need to be working on, and some of it we can start now. So I appreciate very much. You've been very straightforward with us as far as the needs as you see them, and not apologetic, but simply saying this is the way it is, this is what we're doing, and I appreciate how you've approached it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mayor. May I make one other comment? Because I can appreciate Alderman Sneed's linking the sentencing of a particular offender and linking that to legislative issue. It is a legislative issue in some ways because there are sentencing guidelines for those types of things. However, there are 3 or 4 ways to bypass that system. And if you don't have your district attorney on board, you don't have your judges on board, and you don't have your police and your sheriff's office working together with these people, what happens, it doesn't matter what the crime is and what the sentencing guidelines are. If the district attorney allows them to plea to some piddly little nothing charge, then the sentencing guidelines apply to that charge, not to the original charge. So historically, it's been most effective. You've got to have your district attorney on board. You've got to have your judges on board along with law enforcement. Working together, they can go after those repeat offenders. They can identify the worst of the worst and do something more about it. So I'm just adding to that. Legislative is part of the issue, but it's only one piece of it. We can make a difference. Even if we don't change it at the state level, we can still make a difference.
Okay, thank you very much, David.
Okay, and thank you.
We move now to 3.12, discuss and possibly take action on entering into an agreement with local government for implementation of phase 1 of the next gen software at a cost of $9,182.50. Paul?
Well, thank you, Mayor. In the budget for last year, we were trying to get a new system that was going to perform a lot more functions than the current data processing system that we've been using for years. However, we're a very unique community, not as many communities that are full service cities. We've got 6 utilities in general fund. All of them have particular needs, and it's, some software vendors are very good at one, and then one's maybe better at another. But we haven't found one that's done both well, general fund and utility well. So this past year, we did not recommend purchasing, expending over $400,000 for a new system. And Jane is going to explain to you probably what our option is at this point.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Murphy.
Hopefully y'all have had a chance to read the memo that I'd included in your package that kind of explains how we have gotten to where we are. But as Paul mentioned, we had a really extensive effort to look for an full-blown ERP system that would provide way enhanced capability to what we have currently, which is basically dealing with a 20-plus-year-old system. We found at the end of that project that there really is just not a software provider out there right now that provides an excellent solution for basically everything we run within the city. The city is very unique. We have the general fund here, which is a very unique accounting type, but we also have our more business-related activities, which are the 6 different utility funds. That is a completely different accounting type, and we have to be able to have a system that will allow us to pass data back and forth. It's not going to be a cost-efficient solution for us to have 2 completely different software systems out there. There's just too many training dollars associated with that, not to mention hardware and just the inefficiency associated with being able to pass data back and forth. So what we are recommending at this point in time is that we remain with our current software supplier, which is a company called Local Government. The city has been with the software provider for, as I said, over 20 years. We are currently on a very old version of that. We are recommending that we remain with Local Government but implement their next generation software. A drawback to that is that they are currently in the process of developing this over the many modules that they offer, and Springfield uses almost all of those modules because we just have so many different things going on at this city. Currently, General Ledger, which of course will touch all of us, General Ledger is available, as well as their document management system and their record writing, which is basically what we will use to run all of the reports that we need across city lines. Those are available for us right now, and that's what I'm recommending, which is the cost that you see in your package. That's going to cover that, as well as also pick up a module that we currently do not own today, which would be for the codes department, and it's a permitting software that's at the Zortec level, but currently that is not at the next gen level. So what will be happening, and other cities across Tennessee have made this same decision and are following this same process, we will be implementing as they roll out and have tested each module by module. So our first step will be these 3 that I'm recommending, and then as they have future modules available, we will be implementing those. Local Government is completely on the hook to make sure that there is a seamless integration between the platforms that we are on right now in the Zortec module, which is the low-grade module we're currently running, and the next-gen module. So they will assist us in making sure that that all works. The good thing about this, I guess, is this is a much lower cost option. Y'all remember the cost that we were talking about earlier, much more expensive. Local Government is making this very affordable for their clients to be able to roll into this. The capabilities will be much better than what we're currently used to, but I will have to say I do not think, and I hope that this is not the final solution for the city. I hope that in the process there will be a supplier that suddenly is on the scene that will be a perfect solution for all of us, because boy, when we were going through the process, we saw some really slick stuff, and it excited the employees, and they'd like to be able to do all of that. Local government's a little bit clunkier than that, but it's going to be so much better than what we have right now that I think it is the best direction at this juncture that we can go with. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to y'all, this is a less than $10,000 purchase right now. Typically, I wouldn't have put that on the agenda. However, as soon as we make this decision, we will have to make an investment in another server, because we will be running two completely different software versions. So there will be about a $20,000 purchase, also budgeted in the budget y'all have approved. I'm not bringing that to you right now because we haven't actually gone through the bidding process, and we want to do that before I bring it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion that we move on this?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Carnell.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
All right, 313 is to discuss and possibly act on projects to be funded with proceeds from the 2014 general obligation bonds. You have a list there. Paul, do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just trying to get some idea. In late August or early September, we're scheduled to begin some other projects in the sewer rehab. Obviously, we've got to borrow $1 million for the library. We did get a Greenway grant, so there'll be some match to that, but I think we're working on some other numbers that they're going to allow us some other
Credits.
well, I think dollars that we have assigned to us in other projects. Okay. And possibly be able to put that to this project as well. Right now, the guess is $301,600 for a Greenway match. Sewer collection system, trying to get our arms around that. We've got phases 2, 3, and 4 all coming up in the next year and a half. And it's a real guess as to what we're going to have to wind up spending. I think maybe $12 million is a little too low if we're going to be able to keep in sync, maybe as high as $15 million. We've had two projects here as a result of annexation. We've had the Highway 41 South Sewer Extension. We did phase 1. We put off doing phase 2 last year so we could allocate that money to the sewer rehab project. Also, at the time that the golf course land was annexed, there was other land up on Old Greenbrier Pike that was annexed at the same time. And it was brought to my attention that sewer was a part of that extension, and so we have brought that back to the table for action. Then last year we also delayed working on the construction of a new wastewater facility. We've purchased a building. We've had the architectural design done. I've got $3 million for that. We reallocated that to sewer to make sure that we had enough money to proceed with the rehab. And lastly, we've got damage to one of our sludge lagoons at the water plant. A serious sinkhole problem that's probably going to require that all or most of the lagoon be replaced. And we are going to get some money from TML, our risk management pool, somewhere in the order of $260,000. And that'll help, but it won't repair the whole thing. So closer to $1 million to replace that basin.
All right, so what you're showing here, these items that you just alluded to, you're showing that this is the recommendation at this point from staff?
Well, what I want to get is a feel for you on a couple of things. Most of these things are in the budget. As the last time, we had certain projects allocated, and rightly so, the board reallocated some of these to some projects that were more immediate need at the time, basically sewer rehab. Right. So just wanted to get some idea what the board wanted to spend the money on. We do have the Greenway match. We know we're going to borrow the money for the library, so that's really not a decision. It just goes in with the rest of the sewer rehab. Wanted to know if you wanted to, when we borrowed the library money and possibly Greenway match, if you wanted to do any sidewalks. Put some money in for that. Sewer collection system repairs, probably closer to $15 million. And really, it's just your decision whether you want to do the Highway 41 South sewer extension. The old Greenbrier Pike is pretty small, and that's been the oldest one that we need to pay some attention to, so I'm definitely going to recommend that we do that one and get that out of the way. You've got, once again, $3 million for the water wastewater department building, and you've got $750,000 for the sludge lagoon construction, which we are going to have to do. We don't have a choice there.
All right. Specifically then, are you asking us to, you pretty well pointed out the things that you absolutely think we need to do, but you're more or less saying that we might want to add something in the area of sidewalks, and then we needed to give our blessing to going forward with the construction of the building, the water and wastewater. Is that what you're?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Do you want to do that? And these projects are here. We've budgeted for these projects in the fiscal year 15 budget.
Okay.
But before we spend the money, you're going to have to decide what we want to do.
All right. Now, on this phase 2 of the Highway 41 South sewer extension, because that project or the annexation of that property goes back to the mid-90s, does it not?
Yes, 98.
Okay.
98.
Now, have we had people, this is the stretch all the way up to Ozane Road. All right. Have we had people in phase 2 who have asked to hook on at this point?
No. When you annex, you have to have, within a reasonable period of time, I think it's about 10 years, you have to get these facilities in there. Now, the interesting thing about this is that we've had some people who needed sewer, but most people, their septic systems are still functioning, and they haven't asked. I think the biggest customer that we've had out there has been the veterinarian office, and he was very interested in that, and he built a new building, and he was able to stay where he is. But yeah, we're not really within the guidelines of what we're supposed to do, but on the other hand, there's no real demand for that.
Well, it would seem, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, but certainly if somebody was wanting to hook up to it, and we were not having it available, that would be on us to correct it, because they've certainly had more than enough. We've had more than enough time to do it. However, if there is no demand, with all of these other pressing demands, I'd hate to spend that $1.5 million if it's not really wanted or needed at this time. So now, does that phase 2 start at Portland Road South?
Yeah, it starts south of, we added part of phase 2, brought that into phase 1, where it's south of Portland Road, and it goes on down to the Greenbrier city limits.
Okay, that is phase 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And
All right.
Then the old Greenbrier Pike extension, that would have been in the early 90s. That would have been 92 or 93, whenever you secured the golf course property.
92.
And of course, you know, Mr. Fox has asked for sewer down there, and this is really the more practical way to get it.
Is that the old Greenbrier Pike one that you're talking about, the 200,000?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what's your feeling on this? Speaking specific, anybody got how do you feel? Let me just kind of throw it, I mean, since there are about 3 items here that we could pick out, I guess, to say put off or go ahead with. The phase 2 of Highway 41 South. Is there anybody who wants to go ahead with that at this on this issue?
Yes, sir, because of the age of it.
No.
And I'm seeing no, yes, yes.
Not if there's not a demand.
Well, I'm in the no also if there's no demand.
I thought you said that if someone needed and we don't have it.
Right. So I would say no to that one, is the consensus here. Now, what about the wastewater facility? Now, that's a total of $3 million if that's proceeded. Certainly, there's got to be some more room provided, but are you ready to do that now?
I think still, till we get through this sewer repair and get toward the end of that we should not spend that money.
Mr. Steve?
No, sir.
Are you talking about the lagoon?
No. Now, we're on to the wastewater building.
Oh, well, we have to lay the building.
Precision products building.
I have a problem on the old Greengrass sewage deal. Did you rule
Well,
that
no,
out?
I did not. That was one Paul said he felt like we really had to do.
Yeah, that's what I want, yes.
Yeah, that wasn't question. What I seemed to be questioned, what Paul had not said absolutely need to be done, was the sewer extension phase 2, and then the water wastewater thing.
I can wait on that one. Greenbrier, yes, move on that one.
Okay. So we're down onto the building, water wastewater building. Delay.
Going out there on Center, right?
Yes, sir.
Delay it.
I feel like we'll have to delay it for what Mr. Head said. We need to focus on the sewer.
All right.
But we also need to make that building look better if we're,
Yes.
we need to focus on that, because if we're condemning properties in that area, that's not looking so
Mr.
good.
Mayor.
So,
All right, well, that's everybody know on the building at this time. Mr. Sneed?
I know we spent some money architecturally wise on the water facility building, but square footage wise and the cost of renovating it and the architectural rendition of what it would look like after spending the money that they said they wanted to spend on it, we could tear it down and build a new one.
Well, that's, since we're saying it by consensus that we're not ready to move on it, that is a topic for later discussion. All right, so we're pretty well clear that we're saying, of course, the library, which we've already borrowed from the gas department, we have to reimburse them. Have we actually gotten that from you yet, Greg? What kind of interest are you charging us?
5%.
We make
high for the
$5
market.
alone. All right. The library is a go, the Greenway is a go. We'll have to come back on the sidewalks and say what you want to do with that. Sewer collection, repair, nobody's questioning that. We are saying hold, no on phase 2 of the 41 South. We're saying no on the wastewater facility at this time. Are we all on board?
Yes.
And the sludge lagoon, of course, is a necessity.
And Old Greenbrier Pike.
And Old Greenbrier Pike's a go. Now, you on board with us, or are we on board with you on this?
The only thing I'm going to say is we're trying to get the numbers on the sewer collection system. We've got projects coming up in September, and we're going to be working through the end of 2015. So we've got to look at those numbers. We may come back with something like $15 million, but we'll be working with Stevens to discuss the proposed bond issue this week.
All right. Thank you for your response to this. Now let's move to 314, which is to discuss and possibly act on the encroachment of an electrical easement by a new house being built at 1513 Clay Street. That's over in Newtown.
So moved in my ward.
Second?
Second.
All right. Paul, you want to elaborate on this?
Yes, Mr. Michael Justice has been doing some work in some of our more neglected neighborhoods, and he's been doing a good job taking some older buildings down and putting new property in. At this particular location, he moved a mobile home out, and he's building a couple of houses, this house and a house next to it. And unfortunately, one of the stakes or the survey pin, one or the other, was in the wrong spot, and he started to build. Unfortunately, the house is considerably a ways along right now. It's got the walls up, and it's not a simple matter of just, for example, removing a porch or what have you. It's an aerial easement, is my understanding, Robert, primarily?
That's correct.
And it sits one corner of it, and you see a diagram from Steve Arts. If you look at the square is the house, and you can see where the easement cuts a little bit on the, I guess it would be kind of relative to the northeast side of it. But it really is does not negatively impact the easement. It's really not in the way of anything. It's pretty open back there. The only understanding that Mr. Justice would have to have is that it is still an easement, and he's got about 6 feet of that house in an easement. So we are going to have to do whatever we do, and, you know, we're not necessarily required to make his property neat and clean once we access our easement. But the issue is the house is probably at least 50% erected, maybe more, and I just don't think, for what the conflict is here, I don't think it's worth it to require the man to tear the house down. But we probably do want to clarify that he is in the easement, and that, you know, we'll let Robert and Jim come up with the proper wording that Mr. Justice can execute some document
All right,
recognizing
so
that.
what is the motion you're actually seeking?
Well, he's in violation of an easement. He's got something inside of an easement.
Okay. But based on what everybody has recommended to us, based on the fact that this man in good faith moved forward with this, there was an error there that occurred. But Mr. Gardner, do you say you think your staff can work around this problem?
Where he built the house is not preventing us from maintaining the line. There's several feet of clearance between the corner of the house and the center of the line. We've got plenty of room to work on the easement. Okay. We just couldn't approve him to be on an easement. That's
gotcha.
beyond
so this
my...
is a technicality that we are correcting.
Right.
So what we're actually doing is saying we're going to allow the encroachment. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, normally if this happens every now and then, but the problem is if it's a variance, it usually goes to the planning commissioner or somebody that will approve the variance. In this particular case, it's not just a simple variance being off from the setback. It's in our easement that we own. Okay. So we felt that the only people...
allow the
encroachment.
For me.
To allow the encroachment into the city easement, okay, subject to some agreement being drafted up.
All right, Mr. Sneed.
I make a motion that we approve the staff's recommendation.
Well, we've actually already got Mr. To start with, Mr. Hubbard made the motion to take care of it. I wanted it clearly worded, so it's to allow the encroachment.
All right, I'd like to make amendment to the...
And that was seconded. Now, what's your amendment?
That the deed of trust on the property should also be notated of this board's action, so that there's not a consequence with maybe the future owner not knowing this, because we're just getting a letter from the owner right now.
Mr. Balter.
I'd suggest we get up a document for him to sign, and probably the city too, that the city's allowing the encroachment on the easement, but we're not waiving rights to the easement if needed, and record it in the registrar's office so that future owners would be aware that it's there.
All right, so but your request is?
Well, it's got some legal language I think we're going to have to put into it. Is that right, Jim? I'd say defer this until next month, pending Mr. Balthrup's drafting of a legal description of what we're going to do.
Are there problems with this in delaying this?
I don't recommend delaying, because I love what you're doing, and I want you to go ahead and finish what you're doing on Clay Street. I mean, automatic privileges this time. You let me finish talking.
I'm going to have to go back to this other. Okay. Does anyone want to second Mr. Sneed's recommendation on the amendment? I don't hear one. We're back on the main motion to allow it.
May I just...
With the restrictions that, with the suggestion that Mr. Balthrop said about handling it legally. What you recommended?
That we prepare and record a written document that the city is allowing the encroachment on the easement, but is not waiving the right to use the easement in the future as needed.
All right, and that's, all right, we're going to vote on this, allowing the encroachment with that stipulation provided as well. If you favor this, Mr. Hubbard?
Just to Mr. Justice, keep doing what you're doing, okay? I've been waiting for 20 years to see something like this happen up there, okay?
We appreciate it, Mr. Justice. All right. Call the roll, please.
Mason.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
Okay, 315 is to discuss and possibly act on establishing a policy to reduce or eliminate city liens on real property in order to encourage redevelopment or reuse of those properties.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Paul, you want to elaborate here?
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you,
it's
Mayor.
obvious, but go ahead.
Well, as we tear down more unsafe properties, we've got to maintain them. We've put significant liens on some of these properties. Most of these liens are not in neighborhoods where people are going to spend a lot of money to clear a lien in order to purchase that property. So we had a meeting last week. Chris Trauber, Phyllis Morris, Jim Bolthrop, Jane, myself, Mark Fields, to talk about what options we have with regard to liens. And I think it was our determination that the city has a lot of flexibility with how it wants to deal with liens and people who want to purchase property, just so long as it hasn't proceeded to a tax sale. But anytime up into a tax sale, I believe you would have the right to determine whether you wanted to charge the lien, all of the lien, or whether you wanted to forgive some or all of the lien.
So are you asking for that the way this is worded, it is your recommendation or the staff recommendation that a decision to reduce or remove the lien should be made by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on a case-by-case basis based upon the proposed use for each separate property?
That is correct.
You want that to be our policy?
I think it would be best. I don't think we need to have staff people at that level doing that.
I made a motion, but I would agree with.
All right. You have made that, okay, that's what you want.
That's what exactly what I
The
was.
seconder agree?
Yeah.
All right. That's what's being proposed. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Head.
Yes.
Carnell.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
All right, the next items, 316 through 320, are requests that Mr. Sneed had made regarding different things. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to require a vote on everything, but he wants a discussion on this. Mr. Sneed, start with you, number 316, please.
On 3.16, I make a motion that as a matter of policy, the city of Springfield shall enter into agreements and partnerships with Robertson County when due diligence in the interest of Springfield is vetted in drafting a mutual contract.
Are you requesting a formal motion on that, sir?
That is a motion, yes.
That is a motion. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Sneed.
Sneed.
In bringing this to our attention, it was, to my surprise,
State
the motion again.
Please. He couldn't hear you.
make a motion that as a matter of policy, the city of Springfield shall enter into agreements and partnerships with Robertson County when due diligence and the interest of Springfield is vetted in drafting a mutual contract.
All right. There is a second.
The discussion would be that, to my surprise, sometime back, there was a voice vote that this board was not going to do any more business with the county. That's not in the taxpayers' interest. The city of Springfield pays city and county taxes. There's no reason why we should not try to take advantage of our citizens paying a higher percentage of that and using some of those county funds for mutual projects, much like something else that's on our agenda tonight.
All right.
That's all, Mayor.
Any questions or comments?
Comments I feel that we have, I think is one thing that sort of irritated us, especially with that E911 bill. I think we have really entered into honorable contracts, our discussions with the county. I don't think we want to shut them out, okay?
Well, this is not shutting them out, but it is stating that you want a lot of scrutiny given to it as we go through it. Paul?
Yeah, let me say one thing. I don't necessarily have a disagreement with that. I think I understand what he's saying, and certainly in light of the issue with the E911 board. But we want to make it perfectly clear to the public, since for the 19 years I've been here, we've helped the county every way possible. And we've proceeded things with a lot of significant improvements with, minimal paperwork and working together. I think the E91 situation was disappointing, and it's taken a long time to resolve. And it deals really with the first time we've tried to integrate really two organizations with different styles and kind of slightly different priorities.
Dispatching.
But the good news is we're real close to hopefully next week or next month, we'll have the 911 agreement worked out. And so in the end, for all the aggravation, it's going to be good for everybody. Now, I would agree with Mr. Sneed that, there are going to be times when, maybe we might look at some sort of agreement. Basically what we've been doing is we've been joint funding things where we're paying half, like the library and the college, and those are fairly easy things to come to agreement with. The biggest issue was the 911, and we thought it would be easier to reconcile than it was, and it is easy to reconcile, and we've finally done that, and we will be doing that by a contract, much as Mr. Sneed has pointed out. But it's just up to you to what sort of flexibility do you want. I don't think it's, we provide a lot of assistance to the schools and the county when they need equipment or whatever, and they provide some assistance to us when we need it. So I think the working relationship is good, and I've been vocal because we've had such a good relationship, and I've worked so hard at having a good relationship. I've got to tell you, I was disappointed, and it's no mystery that I've displayed some aggravation from time to time up here. But the fact is that what we've accomplished is a good thing. I stand by it, and there are going to be points where I think we probably will need contracts, and then there are points where we probably won't need contracts. But we work day to day very well on just about everything, and I just wanted to state that for the record.
Okay. All right, you have the matter before you. Any questions before you vote? Everybody clear? Call the roll.
Hubbard,
I'm going to say aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
passed 6-0.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor, on
Next, 317, Mr. Sneed.
is 317, last month, I made a motion to eliminate 4 positions at the Sewer and Water Department. I was unsuccessful in getting that motion passed. Part of some of the discussion last month was the department was running at an efficiency level that would not allow the absorption of the work by the existing employees. I think there's some personnel issues that Mr. Dang may be aware of that I've come in knowledge of, that there could be some confidentiality issues with. Mr. Dang, is there anything that you could tell the board that may disprove what was said last month, that the department's running at the efficiency level that would not allow any work to be absorbed by existing employees?
Well, I'm going to tell you that when you've got 3 or 4 crews, is it 3 full crews that we have, or is it 4?
4.
Okay. One does a specialized thing. But half that work is done in a 150 square mile area, and that is the water system. So the fact is, to be able to do the type of work we need to on the sewer collection system, we're going to have another crew devoted to that, because we have not been able to keep up with that in dry overflow conditions or in wet overflow conditions, and we simply have to prevent that. As far as you know, how a department runs. I think I've got examples for every department. You know, time to time, we've had issues with people and what they're supposed to do, and that's not uncommon in any organization. But I do believe that it is prudent to have this dedicated crew to make sure that we're in compliance with the EPA.
I didn't ask the question whether we needed that crew. My question was what we were told last month, that the department was running at a level of efficiency that they could not absorb the work with existing employees. Do you still stay with that statement?
I say what I said.
Okay. That's all on 3.17, Mayor.
3.18.
3.18. I would like some clarification from the city manager about what was printed in the paper, that the animal control shelter was delayed. There needs to be, I think, as a matter of policy with this board, instructing Mr. Nutting and staff that when a motion is defeated, as the shelter was, it is dead unless a motion is made to continue or pursue further action.
I think, technically, the bid that was proposed to us was denied, was defeated. Right. But that we didn't elaborate one way or the other whether we were to bring it back or not. Right. You're still going to have ultimate control over whether it's done or whether it's not done.
But the staff is continuing to work on an issue that we killed.
No, sir, we did not kill the issue. We killed that bid.
Okay. Yeah. So as a matter of record, what the newspaper printed is inaccurate.
I'm not here to correct the newspaper.
I want to know how they got delayed instead of.
Well, it is, at this point, the idea is there's nothing official on this except the official action that we took in denying the approval of that bid because it was too high.
My point was just
we didn't kill the project.
I was just trying to get some clarification. What would be declared dead when we killed the motion? When I read the paper, it was delayed.
I think it's a matter of semantics, to tell you the truth.
All right.
Can I say one thing?
Mr. Nutty.
Okay. I think I've answered this by email to everybody. I hope you all got a chance to read that. Obviously, when we're coming to you with projects, we just went through this exercise a few minutes ago. What do you want to do? What don't you want to do? We voted to build an animal shelter. We did not vote to accept the latest bid on that. We also agreed that we wouldn't use any sidewalk money that we're trying to allocate to help do that. So candidly, I don't know what we're going to do right now. And I think delayed is the proper word, because that project is still on the books. Nobody said we're not building an animal shelter, but we haven't taken any formal action to move further.
Similar to what we just did with the wastewater building. We didn't say kill it. We said we're not moving at this time.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, last month, or 2 months ago, I asked Mr. Nutty to get with the county on what to do with maybe a possible merge. When I asked him about the question, came I don't think it was a cordial response to my question, but I was told that the chief of police looked at it. I don't know who he talked to, and we didn't tell him to tell somebody. I told him to talk to. I told you.
Well, now wait just a minute. Mr. Sneed, as the city manager, if you make a request of the city manager to get certain information over time, he may give that to a subordinate if he wishes. That doesn't mean that he personally has to go. That's getting into management. We set policy. We don't try management style. Go on with it.
You've defended him well.
Well,
I am telling you the way the chair sees that.
All right. Thanks, Mayor. I think, Mr. Sneed, what you really need to do is read the city charter, because I can't have 7 bosses. And how this works is I'm basically the president of the company, and you're the board of directors.
That's right.
And collectively, you make a decision and you give me guidance as a body of what you want done as a body. Now, of course, if you have information that you want, by way of helping you make decisions or whatever, we try to get that for everybody. But the fact is, you cannot personally direct me to do anything. And the fact is, it was a good question. David said that he would meet with these people. There's no need for me to do it, and quite frankly, with the, you know, the way I have felt about this, and I've already confessed to this, and it's been obvious at other meetings, that I don't think having me at some of those meetings would be in the best interest of the city.
And Mr. Chief Thompson reported that the city of Greenbrier, which maintains an animal control program, and the county both said there was no interest in working together with us on this project. They were happy with where they were.
Well, in light of some things that were said in the past, I wouldn't blame them. But with the motion we just passed, and with the motion being killed as is, and it's still being delayed, I don't think that when I asked you to ask the city manager to talk with the county, it was done in earnest when I was told that they weren't interested.
Well, Ms. Steve, remember Chief Thompson reported his findings of the meeting that he attended representing the city.
All right, I'm ready to move on.
I am too.
3.2.
Sir, because I was in that fight last
Okay,
time.
I got it. Go ahead, we're on 319 now.
The 319, I was just interested, I'd asked Mr. Nunn to bring some documents to see where we are with the Legacy Golf Course and the fees this time last year. Of course, we have that in front of us here on this page. It's kind of self-explanatory if it's not too detailed, but it's good enough. I guess we'll have to wait a little bit longer because it's a little bit behind on records.
Well, can I say something?
You need to.
Okay, I just want to say, yes, you do have the latest printout, but I think Mr. Sneed is interested in more information. I have no problem with that, but I've got to get with Josh. The problem is we're trying to close the year. In 2 more weeks, our finance director isn't going to be here, so I've had to work a little extra with Josh to try to get this information. He's gotten some of the information, he just doesn't have it all, and so I will respond to Mr. Sneed's request and try to get that provided to everybody.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Sneed. You ready for 3.20?
On 3.20, discuss possible action on Springfield property tax notice. I have had discussions with Ms. Murphy. After explaining to her with the tax form I passed out to everyone, I think last month.
Yes.
The city of Nashville has their tax notice, the property tax notice for the real property broke down. What's going to police, what's going to fire, what's going to education, administrative, it's broke down. I've had a discussion with Ms. Murphy, as I stated before. We don't do that now, obviously. We just everybody gets a bill and they pay it. I think people need to know what it's going for. If there's issues that the police need, we can raise taxes in a way that's specific to the police, specific to the fire, specific to the administration, and so on and so forth. People will know where their taxes are going. Right now, we get a tax increase, it goes into one big checkbook, and it's all kind of passed out the way we divvy it up in the budget, but people don't really see that. When they get their tax card and they have to write a check for it, I think they need to know what percentage of that property tax is paid to specific departments. It is possible, Ms. Murphy said it was possible. The software that we're talking about getting, that's something that I brought up months ago. I don't know if you kept it in mind with the property, with the software we approved earlier, but the tax cards are actually done by the state right now. It's the cheapest way. If we do it contract out, she could provide those figures and then it could be broke down. It wouldn't be a matter of our software, but we need to get to a point where our budget is where you can figure out what your property taxes are going to, rather than just write me a check and trust me, we'll do what's best in your interest.
I see what you're driving at, Mr. Steve, but this is what you would have to keep in mind. It would be easy enough to have a pie chart showing the general fund, which these services are paid. Police, fire, public works, etc. Those are general fund components. Okay, you could, but how are you going to say when your revenue for the general fund comes, number one, from the local sales tax?
We don't have enough time this meeting getting into all that, but I explained it to Ms.
Well, let me know, I've got the floor right now. And the second part of it is, the second largest contributor would be the property tax. But how are you going to say which one of those sources of revenue went to which department? The auditors come in and look at everything you do. And if the police department has it, what's the budget of the police department, David? 4 million?
3.8 million.
Okay. 3.8 million. We can show what percent that is of the general fund. And then we can show all of the elements that make up the general fund as far as revenue. Those items that I just said, and smaller ones too, business licenses and all that kind of thing. And they can see clearly, these are the sources of revenue, and this is how the total is spent.
That wouldn't change.
But what you're wanting to say, and it can be, it's easy enough. Let's just say you wanted to add a police officer, and you want to say that we increased, and to employ a police officer, you're talking a salary of around $35,000.
If you add
everything, benefits and all.
Training, benefits, if you add everything, you
50.
close to 100,000.
I don't see that unless you're talking about the car and all. And that's, and he'll use the car 8 to 10 years. I'm talking about funding the person, David.
Between 50 and 60.
All right, so that would be a little less than 2 cents of the property tax if that's your sole revenue for that person.
That wouldn't work like that. Ms. Murphy and I have talked about it. It can be done. Metro does it.
Well, you go ahead with your proposal then.
I think that staff needs to work on this and get it to where our tax cards are outsourced. So I'm going to make a motion that we outsource our property tax card notices to our citizens, our property tax owners, to our property owners, that would have a breakdown percentage-wise of how their property taxes are allocated. That's my motion.
Is there a second? Ties for lack of a second. All right, we're ready for the monthly sewer system rehabilitation report.
It'll be relatively short. Most of what happened in this last month is that the contractor for Phase 1A in situ form is just about to wrap up. Within a month or so, they'll be done. The contractor for Phase 1B, American Infrastructure, they're going to be wrapping up within another month and a half or so, and they'll be done. We are, because that's basically what the report is. I put down the latest dollar amounts we paid for Gresham Smith for their task orders, as well as the latest pay replace for American Infrastructure and in situ form.
All right, any questions of Mr. LeMasters? Thank you very much for these timely reports, and we look forward to hearing from you next month. We have now the consent portion of the agenda.
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder. Carneal. Mason. Head.
Yes.
Pass 6-0.
All right, Mr. Nutting, your report, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take a little liberty this evening to recognize two employees, soon to be former employees, for their fine work. I invited George James back this evening, but I wanted to say that back when we hired George in 2000, I thought we were extremely fortunate to have him. He worked for many, many years for the state of Tennessee, doing great work at the local government level, giving those people support. And I thought I hit the lottery when I hired George, and I did hit the lottery. And George has a couple of master's degrees. A lot of people don't know this, but Governor Bredesen appointed George to the Tennessee Local Government Planning Advisory Committee, where he served as chairman up until his retirement at the end of June. So that's, that that is recognition of in his professional field, and it's good for Springfield. I mean, that really makes our city look good, and they have a lot of decisions they have to make with regard to the recommended growth plans for every county in the state, so it's very important work. George is very knowledgeable. He's got connections across the state. If he doesn't know something, he knows somebody who does know about a particular topic. He's mentored people. He's got so many ways that he's been able to help us. He's worked very hard to bring us up to standard, to operate the way other cities do with regard to regulations and zoning and code enforcement. George always has taken his time with citizens and tried to help them out, and he's always been very good at trying to establish and indeed maintaining good working relationships. He's been very approachable and highly professional in his time with the city. And George, we're going to miss you, and we wish you good luck. And also, sadly, Jane Murphy, who we also hit the jackpot with. Bobby Lehman has done great work, and I was really worried, can we get somebody who could, you know, perform at the level Bobby did? And Jane was, we were very fortunate that we were able to hire about 5.5 years ago. Jane had to make the transition from private sector to public sector, and unfortunately she's going to go back to the private sector. Bad for us, but good for her. And Jane, very interesting, we talked about George having 2 degrees. Jane actually has 3 degrees from the University of Alabama, so she's one up on our good friend, County Attorney Clyde Richard. But the balance on the square, I think, will be restored, Jim. That's the only one good thing I can say about it. But Jane has really challenged the employees to find better ways of doing things, and the finance officer affects everybody. Everybody spends money, everybody has to be accountable. So it's the one position that really has to work with everybody. And she's made a lot of improvements on how things were done. She challenged the employees. She's taken the lead in attempting to find better solutions within the entire city organization. We talked about the computer data processing system this evening, just one of many things that Jane has taken the lead on. She's not afraid to deal with difficult or challenging issues, and unfortunately in finance you have to enforce a lot of city policies, and many of them have to do with utilities, and people get into some pretty difficult situations, and you've got to be delicate with that. You have to have some empathy, but you also have to be able to enforce the rules when required. And she's been very hardworking, dedicated, and reliable, extremely even-tempered throughout the whole thing. She has a positive impact on the entire organization. And she's the type of person, if you ask her, well, Jane, do you think you could get this for me? You're expecting, well, maybe next week will be fine. It's like it's on your desk in an hour. So we really appreciate your efficiency, Jane, and you contribute a lot to the city of Springfield, and we wish you well. Hope you come back and visit. You too, Jane. Also, I would like to congratulate the Parks and Recreation Department for the wonderful 4th of July show. They do it every year with the Winter Wonderland, the summer concerts in the park. Police Department and Fire Department for your valuable assistance also in enforcing the codes over the weekend. So we appreciate that. Also wanted to inform the board that we have been working with the allocation of funds for Dixie Youth Baseball. The 7 to 8-year-olds are heading for Texarkana, Arkansas tomorrow. I have made the decision to reallocate some money in Parks and Recreation to give them $5,000 to help cover the hotel bills. And we think we can work that out, possibly get some of that money back. But that will definitely get them there, and we wish them well.
We get them back, too.
Well, hopefully not too early.
Okay.
Now, another thing, I want to give each board member a letter from the Robertson County Senior Center, and you may have heard that they are having trouble raising funds. They are requesting $5,000 donation, and maybe that's something we take up at another agenda. Also, Chief Thompson talked about tonight, and I just wanted to give you some information. We've got he's got a good document here about the assigned vehicle policy. So we don't have to discuss this any further if you would read it. If you have any questions, I'd encourage you to ask Chief Thompson or myself or Jane, and we'll try to answer any questions that you have and maybe take that on at a future meeting. Also, he talked about police officer assignment pay, and I feel that I really need to bring this to you because this was something that I overlooked in my, I write a pretty extensive budget letter every year, and although I can't get everything in there, I try to get most things in there. But early in the process, I did put money in there for possible assignment pay at 5% for the positions that the chief mentioned. However, I've not automatically put them in place because, number one, you were not aware of it, and so I'm bringing it to your attention. And if you want to do so, maybe we can take action at a future meeting. But I asked Ms. Holt, Gina Holt, our Assistant City Manager and Personnel Director, to prepare the breakdown on those positions, what that would be. Once again, we do have money in the budget, but we will not implement that until the board agrees to do that by a formal vote. Also, Chief Thompson informed me today he had a good meeting at the E911 board this morning, and hopefully within the next 10 days we'll have a new agreement, written agreement, with regard to everybody being consolidated under the E911 board, not Robertson County, not the city of Springfield, but the E911 board. So for all the aggravation, I think it's been worthwhile. It'll be a good system for everybody, and I think we'll all be more efficient and we'll save some money doing so. And lastly, the lease for the Highland Crest College campus. Jim has been working on that diligently, as has County Attorney Clyde Richard, and we're really close to getting
Well, there are
that
a couple
done.
of areas that we're still talking about with the Board of Regents with respect to equipment primarily out there. And been emailing back and forth, but we haven't quite gotten a resolution yet.
So hopefully next month. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you for your participation in tonight as we try to work through these items. And I think those who are watching and those who are present know that we come here in good faith trying to work out differences of opinion and trying to move the city forward, to take care of problems, and also to take charge of the challenges that are before us. And I think we're moving in the right direction on a lot of ways, and particularly as what we've talked about tonight with improvements in law enforcement, and also, of course, the continuing improvements with our sewer program. I want to compliment Tony Phelps and all the work that that department has done to, I know, putting on a tournament of the magnitude that the one you're going to host in a few days is something very significant. And this is another way to highlight our city, just as the kids who are going to Texarkana, they're representing Springfield, Tennessee. They're representing all of us, and that's very, very significant as we try to get positive news out about our community in every way that we can. Mr. Hubbard?
Yes, in reference to the Chief's good presentation on June 30th about the crime rate, I've been talking to some leading citizens about establishing a program for the 13 to 25 with that intervention and prevention type of action, because we know that we can't pay for it up here. So I've sort of try to get established a grassroots similar to the program Project Lot like I had about 8 years ago.
All right, anything further? Stand adjourned.